Lake Murray is called the crown jewel of South Carolina for a reason, and today we're gonna walk you through every season, every section of the lake to help you catch more bass when you come visit the crown jewel of South Carolina. I got a lot of days on this water that I've had a lot of success on. I made the top 10 here in a BPT event. It's a special place, and that's the reason it earned the name the crown jewel of South Carolina. Lake Murray has an abundance of cover: boat docks, rocks, boat ramps, seawalls, humps, long points. You got willow trees, you got brush, however you say it, y'all know what I'm talking about. You have every range of water clarity. On the upper end of the lake, it can get super dirty. You can have really muddy water if that's something you like to fish. And on the lower end of the lake, it typically stays extremely clear. When I attack Lake Murray, I like to separate it in two sections. And it's separated by something we call the little gap. The little gap's gonna be right around Drury Island, where you bust through a little gap and then it opens up pretty wide. That is the lower end of the lake. The water typically is gonna be real clean down there. You're gonna fish a little bit different on the lower end of the lake. The upper half's gonna be a lot more dirty. That's where you're gonna find your willow trees, your brush, your laydowns. Just remember, that's how we separate the lake, the little gap. Generally, wintertime, springtime, I like to be on the upper end of the lake after the spawn. When the herring start spawning, which is a big deal that we'll go into more detail about, I like to be on the lower end of the lake. Lake Murray is just a beautiful area. And just as we broke the lake into halves of actual fishing, you can kind of break the area into halves. On the lower end of the lake, it's gonna be more developed around the Chapin, or on the other side, the Lexington. Tons of places to eat. It doesn't have a bridge that crosses the middle of the lake, so it can take a long time to drive around. But if you want to put in right on the middle of the lake, on the Lexington side, you got Larry Coon Landing. On the Chapin side, you got Drury Island Landing. There's a lot more ramps around this lake. There's one at the dam. There's a couple up the river. So wherever you're staying at, you got a ramp, and then you can go fishing. Pre-spawn bass fishing on Lake Murray is probably the best time of year to fish this lake, in my opinion. There's certain types of things that I like to look for during the pre-spawn. Pre-spawn, I really like to fish the upper half of the lake. It's gonna be a little bit dirtier, so I like to stay on this end of the lake. This is the little Saluda and big Saluda. Most of your muddy water is gonna come in right here, which is the reason I love being up here during the pre-spawn time of year. You can fish all these little points. See how this point comes out here? I guarantee you there's a hard spot on the end of that point. Come on down here, look at these 2 points here. See how they come out? There's probably a hard spot there. There's probably a hard spot there. You're looking for typical pre-spawn stuff. Staging places. Places fish are gonna stop before they go back in there to spawn. Then you can start sliding in these same pockets, these same points that you crank. You can just slide right in here and there'll be boat docks. Early pre-spawn, they'll be on these boat docks out here. Later on, they'll be on these boat docks back here. So I'm gonna focus on this upper end of the lake where I know the water's gonna be a little bit more off color and I can catch them how I wanna catch them during the pre-spawn time of year. Pre-spawn, now we dove into the areas. Remember, first we're gonna crank the points, right? And that's gonna be kind of the first place they set up. Any little red flat side or red square bill, your favorite, is gonna work. This is the Strike King Chick Magnet. Next, we talked about how the bass are just gonna slide right inside to maybe the first docks. My favorite is a bladed jig. Why? Because I can skip it. I can skip it underneath the poles. I can skip it, underneath the floats. Next, we'll slide into a jig. Everybody's got their favorite jig. This is the Strike King skipping jig. It's actually got my name on it. So if it's got your name on it, it better be your favorite. This is the Andy Montgomery skipping jig. But when they start sliding to them back docks and they get under them back floats, I really like to slide that jig under there and catch them that way. So let's transition into the spawn. I like to slide to the lower end of the lake, below the gap where the water's gonna be clear and I can lay eyes on them jokers. I love to fish for spawning fish. And one of our BPT events here just a couple years ago, I made the top 10 sight fishing and I did it down here. There's endless places. You will not run out of places to fish. And you see this is north up. So if the wind's blowing out of the north, these pockets is gonna be protected, and that's the ones I'm gonna get in. It's like that, like that, like that. It's just endless possibilities of pockets you can get in. If the wind's blowing out of the south, then all you gotta do is go to the south side. The spawn, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, 1A, 2A, it's all plastics. Plastics is the deal during the spawn. Probably nothing's better. Now I'll have 2 setups, but probably nothing's better than a wacky worm. Just get your favorite worm. Green pumpkin's gonna be the color most of the time, and this one's actually green pumpkin blue. This is the Strike King Fat Baby Finesse worm. Go down the bank looking for dark spots or around these dock poles in the backs of these pockets. You can throw this wacky worm around there and do the same thing. The only other thing I'll have tied on, it's gonna be plastics, but it's gonna have a weight on it. This is the Strike King Rage Bug. They can't stand that thing in their bed. You're gonna do the same thing. You're targeting the same thing. Put you some good glasses on, go down the bank with your favorite plastic, throwing at stuff you can see. So we got through the pre-spawn, we got through the spawn, and now we're gonna roll into the post-spawn. Lake Murray has something called herring. Post-spawn is the beginning of the herring. And the beginning of the herring lasts all the way until wintertime. I don't know what it is about a herring, but a bass will swim by a shad, he'll swim by a crawdad, he'll swim by a brim just to eat that herring. How about that? And we're gonna go into the types of places you're gonna look for them. These same types of places will last you all the way through until it gets cold again. What are they? If we look here, lower end of the lake is where I like to fish for the herring. I like to come up here in the pre-spawn, and then after that, I'm taking my butt below the little gap, below Drew Island, and we're just gonna zoom in. Again, a good mapping system is key. But these long, see that long point that sticks out right there? Right there. Here's another one, sticks out. All these places jump out like a sore thumb. That's where the herring are gonna get. You gotta find them long points, man. That's exactly where the fish are gonna be, because the blueback herring was up on them points spawning as soon as the fish come off the bed during the post-spawn time of year. You're not gonna see the herring up on the bank flipping like the shad do. You know, you can see the shad up on floats and stuff flipping. Nah, herring, they run up on these points. If you don't have the mapping system that we went over and identified these long points, that's okay. Lake Murray is full of these buoys. They're marking the end of the long points. They're marking the place that the herring are gonna spawn. A good long red point is gonna have them herring up on top of it spawning, and you just gotta know that and run as many as you can. No better time of year to throw topwater. Chrome is the deal on Lake Murray. This is probably the all-time favorite. A stick bait, a walking bait. This is the Strike King Sexy Dog. There's a lot of good ones out there. I catch a lot of fish on the Sexy Dog. You're gonna work the bait really, really fast, but man, when them fish first get up there and they're blowing up, you got the best of both worlds. You got the best bait, and it's the funnest bait to catch them on. Another one that can be key is a jerk bait. You're gonna get right up on the points and work these really, really erratically. Last year, I think, or maybe 2 years ago, on the herring spawning, man, what a phenomenal day. We had an absolute blast out here with my buddy Dalton from Strike King, and we did all of our damage that day on plastics. A lot of times they just wind the bait really, really fast, and this caffeine shad tail will really kick. I caught most of mine that day on the little Rage swimmer, the 3.25 Rage swimmer, same thing, just on a 1/4 ounce jig head, reeling it really fast. Chrome is the common denominator across all spectrums of baits, but these are the ones I'm gonna start with in the post spawn when the fish first get out on these herring points. Go. The majority of the bass are gonna live on these same long points we just looked at all the way through summer into the fall. The techniques may be a little bit different and how you catch them may be a little bit different. Summertime, it's not gonna be a herring spawn type of deal. They're still out there to eat a herring. So the bass are gonna sit on the same points, waiting on them to swim across. May, June, July, when it gets up to 90, in July and August, and then starts cooling back off, none of that matters. The bass are still gonna live on these long points and be waiting on them herring. As you see, I hadn't moved because you don't move. These fish are gonna stay on the same places, these same long points that the buoys are sitting on the end of them. You may have to fish a little different. I'm gonna have the exact same baits tied on. When them herring come over them points, it's just gonna explode. Pooh, pooh, pooh. That's when you really get down, get them baits and get in there as fast as you can, okay? You can catch some of them fish when the herring have not showed up yet, fishing really slow with stuff like a drop shot. This is a Strike King filler worm. There's a ton of different worms on the market, drop shot worms. But a drop shot or a shaky head, just throwing this little stuff around, waiting on the herring to show up so they can pick up their caffeine shads, their stick baits. When the herring collide with the bass that are sitting in their hotel waiting on the buffet, and you can really catch them on this. All the way into the summertime and even into the fall. I'm gonna keep the same baits tied on, but I'm gonna add that worm to it and a whole lot of water and a whole lot of sunscreen and a whole lot of patience for when them herring collide with them bass that's sitting in their hotels on these long points. Now we're into wintertime, and for me, wintertime is the beginning of the pre-spawn. Personally, it's when I like to slide back up the lake and go ahead and start cranking. I'm kind of already in that pre-spawn mode. Same pockets we talked about in pre-spawn, that's where the bass are gonna start sliding and they're gonna start hanging out in the middle of them pockets. I can't reiterate enough as how there is an endless supply on Lake Murray of good places to fish regardless of the time of year that you're fishing. Winter time has gotten cold again, and I'm transitioning basically back to pre-spawn techniques. Now, there's a few other things you can do, and it's a great minnow shaking lake. Forward facing sonar, minnow shaking in the middle of these pockets. But for me, I'm gonna transition back to generally the same 3 baits that we just talked about in pre-spawn, right? The thunder cricket, the red crankbait and the jig. I'm gonna fish them in the same types of places. Not as much in the backs of the pockets, more like I was talking about the first dock end or the points cranking with the crankbait. You may not get a lot of bites, but it could be the time of year you're gonna catch your biggest bass, especially when you get closer and closer to that pre-spawn. So there you have it, Lake Murray, the crown jewel of South Carolina. We just walked through all the seasons and the endless supply of places to catch a bass, from pockets to points. That's your 2 main deals on Lake Murray. But most importantly, there's an endless supply of big bass on the crown jewel of South Carolina, Lake Murray.